So I basically had been doing therapy for what would be over 5 years, since 2018 until when I started, or I did the treatment with the Clinic of Change. And this is mainly, I was doing just psychoanalysis. So just someone that used to come and talk to me, and then two main therapists. And the reason why I decided to get them was because um, I had a psychosis, and then because of this psychosis, a lot of trauma that I had previously resolved or not fully resolved started to show up once again in my life. And then that basically led me to like a couple of years where it would like I will be very depressed, and then I will get out of the depression with the therapy and doing a lot of like yoga and meditation. And then it led me at the end to what what I would call to be like a type of depression, and that I was not really able to get out of with the talk therapy that I was having before, and the methods that all the tools that I had kind of discovered and I have been taught to deal with this crisis modes. And so that the end, what ended up happening was that I had to stop working because I became suicidal. And yeah, so I was quite upset because nothing had worked, and I just wanted some semblance of release, right? And fortunately enough, I had my mother as well, that helped me a lot with this process. And what we devised was that so I live in the Netherlands. So what we devised was that I will go to Portugal, and with help of her, so she could just take care of me, because at this point in time I was just not able to do anything. We started looking into different clinics to help me treat that depression, and also treat the PTSD that I've had as well. So we ended up, we came upon three clinics, one of them being the Clinic of Change, two EMDR clinics. But what they wanted me from the EMDR clinics is for me to be stable. But at the time I was just not stable, and what they wanted me to do essentially was to take a lot of antidepressants and also opioids to kind of relax me, right? But I understand how those work, and also I did a minor in psychology, so I knew what the side effects would entail, and I was quite afraid of the side effects, and also just becoming dependent on drugs. I have been quite against that, right? And also, given my previous issues with drug addiction, that actually led me to that psychosis that I first talked to you about, made me quite skeptical about taking some drugs to get better, right? Which was interesting, right? Because what ended up happening, right, that the two MDR clinics I was not able to go into, right? And then I did the intake with the Clinic of Change, and then that's when they told me about ketamine as a treatment method, right? And I remember that briefly I have heard about it during my minor, right, as something that was only in trials, and I never thought about it as so widely available, or where there was like actually clinics doing the treatments. So at the same time, I was quite skeptical, and I think that I started to try to rationalize it with what I have learned as well during my studies. And yeah, but the only thing that I could say to it was, well, I do this, and if it doesn't work well, I already had my choice. Yeah, I think that the team had a lot of emphasis in it. I felt that I could talk to both Carla and also to Guillermo. They were the two people that actually like Guillermo gave me the intake, and then Carla took over my sessions. Yeah, and they were just fantastic. I felt from the start that I can talk to them, and they were quite interested. And also, I think that they delved even deeper than my previous psychologist in a lot of topics as well. That I think that for some reason my psychologist from the past never really touched upon, and that I thought that actually were quite crucial to my recovery, right? So yeah, the team was a big part at first. Of course, as I said, as I mentioned, with the ketamine, I was quite um, scared and also um, yeah, skeptical about it. Um, because they didn't present it as a miracle drug or anything that was going to fix me, and what they said to me, and I remember Guillermo really clearly told me it has a 70% success rate, so it might really work for some people, it might not really work for some others. What it depends on, it's all these different characteristics, right? But for me, it just felt like at that point in time was the only option that I had. And that's why at the end I just decided to do it. Yeah. I'm very, very happy with the treatment and how it has worked and the long lasting effects that it has had as well. Yeah, so no, I remember absolutely everything. Yeah, from like the intention itself, which was I'm not guilty. So you have to before each session you have to do an intention. You have to set an intention. And the first intention that I set was I'm not guilty, right? And I remember that, yeah, it was a very intense session. So you're yeah, I don't want to say tripping, but you are tripping quite heavily, right? And what I remember from it is that I was basically taking into space by the back of my head, like backwards, right? And then I was like allowed to fall in free fall, right? And I remember just at one point like seeing like stars at the bottom of my feet, and then after a brief period of time, just feeling or and seeing like planets whoosh past me. But then what I realized from that session was that the more relaxed and the more I let go of control, like and I let go of that guilt, um, the better it was. And yeah, I remember waking up from that session and for the first time in months feeling actual like how beautiful the world was. And yeah, I just remember like walking out the consultory, and it's a spring day, beautiful spring day in Lisbon with the trees, the purple trees that you guys have, right? And I just remember staring at them and being like just in complete amazement by how beautiful they were and just the way that I felt. And of course, I felt that way, but I also felt a slight bit of let's say skepticism as well, because the only thing I could think about is like, okay, this must be placebo. Like there would be nothing else that can explain this. It's just maybe, of course, maybe the drug had an effect, but not to this level, right? Um, but yeah, I did ask that question the following day if there was some semblance of placebo in it, and what they said was no. Yeah, it was quite a interesting feeling, because I still remain my same person, right? But it almost seemed like I had stepped into like a future like a future or like if I have learned so much in such a short period of time, right? What it felt like genuinely was just like if I had done like therapy for years, for decades, right? Dealing with like all these things that I had to deal with, right? But then with the sessions, right? It just kind of like it was like a cheat code. right? And I remember that right after I felt like, oh, what if I fall back into old habits, right? Into my old patterns, right? Um, but I never did, and I of course I was also being followed by Carla, right, as well. So I had like had sessions with her every so often, so that we can speak about like my recovery and how I was doing. So that also helped out, right? Also just kind of making sure that I was actually continuing through this new pathways that I had generated in my brain, right? So that I wouldn't like go the other way, let's say. Yeah, it felt like I just changed habits. Yeah, and just very easily, and that to me was very amazing. And I remember being like, this is crazy. Yeah, but something I mentioned oftentimes when I talk about the therapy was the not only the effects that I had in habits, but actually the biggest for me is the fact that it actually completely made my anxiety disappear. Um, So since 2018 and the psychosis, I became permanently anxious. Like it was just sometimes I didn't really know why, or just any situation, just even with being with friends, with close friends, it will make me anxious at times, right? I would really just didn't feel right in my own skin, and then yeah, something that changed was just that I just don't experience like anxiety out of nowhere. I think that I recommended it to many, 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 many people. Yeah, I being honest, yeah, to me it was just a very life altering experience. Um, yeah, that helped me a lot to deal with my own things, and that made me feel confident about myself and my life as a whole. And I think that yeah, I have not I can't help but to recommend the clinic. um yeah, and I've done it through many of my friends. I think that the only issue is that there is quite a big stigma around ketamine, which is really sad, but yeah, I constantly recommend it.